Everyone, this is Dr. David Adler, President of the Australian Jewish Association. I'm privileged to be joined today by one of our very esteemed rabbis, Laibl Wolf, who, in addition to being a rabbi, is an author, is a Kabbalist, is an intellect. But the reason I've asked him to spare a few minutes today is because he has published a very principled and powerful statement uh, about the current anti-Semitism situation, but a specific aspect of it, which is the proposal that the federal government provides an extra $32.5 million to ECAJ specifically in order to, I don't know, improve security, fight anti-Semitism, whatever. So, Rabbi Wolf, why did you feel moved to issue such a statement?
Because I feel rather strongly, David, that we're being played, that the government is wanting to have a hedge a bet or have a bet each way. On the one hand, they want to get the supporters of Hamas vote, the Palestinian vote, the more Muslim vote, and they give them the streets in order to be able to carry out their demonstrations, which is against all Australian principles and probably, I think, against the intent of the Constitution and the legislation. And on the other hand, they want to give us money, throw money at us to defend ourselves against what the vilification is all about. So they're arming both sides like a good weapons supplier would love to do.
So, to give you a medical analogy, I guess this is like treating the symptoms rather than the disease, or something like that. Is that a fair comment?
I think it's even worse. I think they're exploiting the symptoms and utilizing them for their own survival needs.
Well, you've drawn on a Jewish principle and referred to uh, Avram, who became Avraham in the Torah, when he refused rewards after a battle, I think it was.
That's right.
Can you explain that principle?
Yeah, in the case of the Torah, Avram didn't want to at all be associated with any money transfers to him as a result of him succeeding in the war, and he refused the king of Sodom, even as the text says, a thread of a shoelace. I don't want anything from you. I don't want you to go around gloating that you defended us, that you made us rich, that you were able to assist us. Don't want any of that, said Avram. And we should have the same principles. We shouldn't be now taking money from the government in the circumstances where they are simply arming both sides, as I said. And I think it's time for us to make a principled decision that we're going to make a stand. Now, Jewish peoplehood throughout history have always been vilified as being money conscious and money hungry and controlling the banking industry and being the Shylock of literature and the like. Here is a proper occasion where we should refuse the money and say, no, I don't want you to give us money for that. I want you to solve the problem. Your duty is to protect us. Your duty isn't to give us protection so that we protect ourselves. We're living in Australia because you are the ones that need to afford us protection.
Yeah, well, that's a much more targeted and potentially effective approach, that we need to uh, take certain actions that have not been taken that actually removes the problem
Yes,
rather than sort of shields the problem. And that's the difference. We have been critical about some of the government policies as actually inflaming the problem. Can I suggest to you, and far be it from me to say that I'm a Torah scholar compared to you, Rabbi, but I think there's another Torah principle I'll ask you to comment on. It might be in Parashah Shoftim about the appointment of judges, and the Torah specifically says uh, not to appoint judges who can be bribed. Um,
absolutely.
so, what do we learn from that? Does it only apply to judges, or do we learn out from that that indeed bribery is a bad thing in Judaism generally?
Yeah, bribery is forbidden. There's no question that taking a bribe is totally against Jewish law. Now, of course, some might argue this is not a bribe, this is an act of generosity. The government's giving us a handout so that we can protect ourselves and do the right thing. But that's, of course, a very superficial reading of the situation. Judges, as you quoted correctly, actually should be wealthy people who don't require money to be passed in order to influence their decision. In our case, if we want to take the metaphor further, our leaders should be individuals whose high principles, and that's their currency, high principles and Jewish values should be strong enough to withstand the kind of come-ons that we're getting from the government at the moment.
Well, and your final message, as I read your statement, and we'll make the statement available in a link, is don't accept this. You're calling on the ECAJ specifically to reject the money and instead demand that the government actually address the problems. Is that fair
That's
summary?
correct. Yeah, because otherwise you get a spiral, right? They give us the 32 million. They give the freedom of the streets and the university campuses to the Hamas supporters. They increase the ante. They have to throw us more money to protect ourselves further, and onwards and onwards. It simply plays into the hands of the government, which is unfortunately a left-wing government that's held to socialist left values. I remember at university exactly what they were all about. And it's no different. Now, it's true that the Prime Minister tends to come over a little more pragmatically, meaning that at the museum, there'll be shedding of possibly crocodile tears over anti-Semitism. But then in a hot mic, he'll say the truth and say, guess what? The Jews are going to get a surprise tomorrow when Penny Wong votes at the UN. So, I have a strong suspicion that they're playing both sides, and we're falling into it hook and sinker, no question whatsoever. And that's why I think that we should have principled leaders of the Jewish community. And in this instance, it's the ECHA. And they shouldn't be simply rubbing their hands in glee and thinking of the power of distribution of the money and the result of the squabbling amongst the different community organizations to get a bit of the loot, but rather do the right thing. And that is tell our Prime Minister, no, we won't take your money. You solve the problem because that's your duty as Prime Minister of Australia.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Rabbi Wolf. It's much appreciated, and let me assure you and anyone listening that AJA has not received and does not take even $1 of public funds. We rely entirely on the support of our members and donors, and that's how we fundraise and survive.
David, can I just add one more word? Forgive me.
Mm,
But with the upcoming Hanukkah, which is a testament to how a principled decision of a very small minority overcame the might of the Greek Assyrian army, we should not fear that if we tackle the Australian government's mismanagement at the moment, that we too should be victorious.
amen. And as they say, from your mouth to God's ears. Thank you so much, Rabbi Wolf.
Pleasure.